Christmas, as we celebrate it, tends to be a very homely affair. In the United Kingdom, at least, it's probably the one time of year when an almost absolute priority is given to home and family and personal over professional life. It's also, therefore, a very child-centered and very child-friendly feast and time of year. The impressions made upon us by the Christmas tree, by the feasting, by the giving and receiving of gifts, all this carries with it such a weight of sentiment and nostalgia because we remember it from our childhood, because it was ever thus. But actually, this way of celebrating Christmas is really a 19th century invention. It owes a lot to Charles Dickens and A Christmas Carol, as well as the impulses of the Oxford movement. And we get a very different picture of Christmas, one that's much less domestic. If you look, for instance, at John Milton's early 1629 poem on the morning of Christ's Nativity, Milton doesn't focus in, like so many of our carols, on the intimacy of the stable and the baby in the manger. Instead, it's a cosmic and totally public affair. God sends an eerie peace upon the earth that night. Nature is stilled to silence. The hearts of kings cease from their machinations to create a space into which the word is born. And the only thing that can be heard is the sound of the angel song, which comes to the shepherds at Bethlehem. And Milton says that if that song had reached over the whole earth, if it had been allowed to carry on, it would have mesmerized us into a golden age. We would have thought that the end of the world was already here. But of course that would be premature, because Christ's work was still to be accomplished. The babe was born. The cross and resurrection waited some 30 years in the future. And so, in the second half of the poem, Milton describes the way that Christ's work of redemption on the cross is already being put into effect now, is already being anticipated. And the way that happens is by effecting a kind of universal exorcism. The great pagan gods and goddesses, the wicked divinities of the people surrounding Israel in the Old Testament, the demons, are suddenly being silenced and put to flight. They know that their time is up, and it can be that they rule no more. I think this gives us the right key to understand the point of the events we commemorate today, this passage from St. Matthew's Gospel. When Christ drives out demons in the course of his ministry, they tend to leave with one final flourish, one last demonstration of the power they once had but no longer have over their victim. They come out with a great convulsion or a great cry. In the most dramatic case, the demons ask to be sent into a herd of pigs, which they force to be drowned in the Sea of Galilee. And we can see Herod's action, his flailing attempts, completely futile, as one last great convulsion. He realizes that his time is up. He is in power no longer, not because Christ has come to take an earthly kingdom, not because the child in the manger poses any real threat to Herod as a human, but he poses a threat to Herod as a pretender. Herod thinks that his power is absolute. He is the typical tyrant. And in the face of tyranny, in the face of anything which would erect a this worldly situation, a this worldly structure into something absolute and eternal, Christ is an absolute no. It cannot be that way, because only God holds that kind of power. The scene here is actually a bit like the vision in the Apocalypse of the woman who gives birth to a boy, and immediately there is a dragon waiting to snap it up. But the boy is snatched away to safety, and the dragon, in its anger, thrashes about and goes after the woman's other children. Well, the woman stands in a certain way for Mary and the church, who are so often closely identified. The child snatched away for Christ, and his brothers and sisters being attacked by the dragon are Christians around the world throughout history who have suffered persecution. When Christians are persecuted, it's not because of who they are individually, it's not because it's me or you, it's because of the name they bear. When earthly powers try to stamp out Christians, they are really trying to stamp out Christ. They are trying to silence the gospel. And of course, that is a futile effort. It cannot be done, but they can wreak very great damage and very great devastation on people's lives in the process. The holy innocents are the purest of martyrs. They die for absolutely nothing except that they might be the one who threatens Herod. We, as Christians, are nothing special. We probably don't carry as much of the innocence of these holy ones as we would like. They hold up to us a kind of model of baptismal purity which we can only strive for. But, like them, we do bear the name of Christ. And that's not just a fact for our hearts, it's a fact of public significance as well. Christ's reign extends into the home, but it also extends in its own way into the city. And while Christianity shouldn't be politicized, most of the time at least, it shouldn't necessarily align itself to a particular program or a particular party, yet Christianity is inherently political. We cannot pretend that the world has not changed. And we, simply bearing that name, are the marks of that change, the marks of what Christ has done. And we wait in the promise of its fulfillment.